episode of Conversations with Jacob today, and we got a good episode for you. But before we get into our guest of this week, I want to tell you guys about some podcast plugs that I normally do. You can follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Conversations with Jacob, and we're on Twitter at CWJ Podcast. You can check out our merchandise. We got T-shirts, hoodies. We got mugs. We got a whole bunch of stuff over there. It's just too much to name. And you can also follow us on our podcasting platforms. You can watch the video version of the podcast on YouTube, that would be in the link. In the link below. And we're also available on iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. We're on Audible. We're on just about 20 different platforms almost. If you got a question or a show idea or maybe a guest idea, you can send it to our mailbag at conversationswithjacob@gmail.com. You can also visit our website, conversationswithjacobpodcast.weebly.com. Upcoming episodes next week, we're talking Elvis Presley with the Spy Guy. He's on YouTube. June 19th, we're talking Joshua Shea. And the topic of that show is porn addiction. Our future guest is Jim Wittes. He's an author of a book called American Cults and God Uncensored. Then we're talking more Elvis with Larry Getter, who did Elvis's hair for a long time. Then Michael and Jay from Elvis Back on Tour on YouTube. And we're talking with Stanley Premeth, and who is a 9/11 survivor, and much more. But joining me today, and he's into the MMA, the kickboxing, and all that fun stuff. My guest today is Phil Dunlap. Phil, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Jacob. Although I don't know if I can be as interesting as either Elvis or porn addiction.
There you go. All right. How to start off this interview, can you tell us where you're from?
Well, I'm originally from New York. I spent most of my life in the New York area, and then I lived in Vegas for about 10 years. And about a year and a half ago, I moved to Lexington, Virginia.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm from Virginia as well.
We're in Virginia.
I'm near Martinsville.
Okay.
Yeah, small town, though, about 1,000 people, but, it's not big.
Lexington's pretty small too.
There you go. Yeah. Now, how did you get into the martial arts?
Well, honestly, with martial arts, for me, it was more or less something that I didn't get into. It was almost something I always joke around. I became a martial artist and fighter almost by like an accident of birth. My grandfather had spent a lot of time. Long story short, my great grandfather had gotten in trouble in England, and he was a doctor, and he migrated to China. My grandfather grew up in China and then ended up in Burma and spent years prior to and during World War II in Burma, married a Burmese woman. And, he had learned a lot of Burmese martial arts and Chinese martial arts while he was over there. And it's kind of, I just grew up into the martial arts. It was part of my childhood. It was one of those things that he spent a lot of time in my life raising me, because I had a messed up family situation with my parents. So it was one of those things that for me, it was almost like playing with my grandfather. It wasn't martial arts.
All right. And do you still compete today?
I no longer compete in striking-oriented sports like kickboxing and mixed martial arts, because I've got CTE, which is, I have 119 professional fights between kickboxing and mixed martial arts, and I did Lethwei, which is bare knuckle kickboxing. 3 knockouts wins a fight. Headbutts are illegal, and like I've got a little bit of head trauma, but I still compete a lot in Brazilian jiu-jitsu and grappling competitions. Even on the pro level, and I just turned 60 years old now.
Oh, wow. And that was my next question. And has being hit so many times affected you?
Yes. I have. It's kind of weird. I had the beginning of CTE, where you got to remember, like I always tell people, back when I was fighting and training, we didn't have concussion protocols. There was no real thought about the head trauma. So the idea is, like, when I was in Burma, sometimes I'd fight 3 times in a weekend, and I could guarantee I had a concussion from the first fight, and I don't even remember the other two. So it was kind of like one of these things when you really look at it, a concussion is a bruise on your brain. And once you start taking more trauma, when you already have that bruise, you start creating actual damage. And then what happens is, from my understanding, it's almost like you get little dead spots in your brain. Now, where it's affected me personally is a little bit sometimes on moodiness and also forgetfulness, especially, and I found out that this is not unusual. My cognitive abilities dissipate a little bit after sundown for some reason. And then one of the things I've used to combat it, which is kind of weird because I've been drug free for almost 40 years, is I started to smoke THC for because the doctor recommended it to me, and it's really helped with both the cognitive abilities and trouble sleeping.
All right, now you being into kickboxing and the MMA, do you got a favorite move or submission?
Okay, when it comes to striking, my nickname was the White Rhino, so headbutts. When I'm on my feet, headbutts all the time. And in grappling, I love heel hooks,
Oh
which
wow,
are leg
yeah.
locks.
And how many fights have you won?
I put it this way: I lost three. I had two draws. So of the 119, the rest were wins.
Oh wow. Um, and have you ever had a tough challenger?
Oh yeah, I've had a ton of tough challenges.
You know,
Uh,
have you ever had one that you go into a fight and say, "Well, I don't know if I can take him on," or
between you and I, because this is going to sound funny, like I liken it to, like, I've had three careers. Okay, I was very active from 15 to 26, like super active, fighting all the time, and it was like I thought I was invincible. I thought I was going to be the baddest man on the planet. Nobody could beat me. All the stuff that comes with youth. And then I had broken my neck at 26, and it took me 10 years to get medical clearance to fight again. So then I fought from 37 to 42. And it was different in that it wasn't as important to me. And it was more like I was doing it to prove the doctors wrong, because they told me I'd never do anything physical again. And then what happened, I retired, and then I focused on teaching and doing other things. And then I got cancer. And when I recovered from the cancer at 48, I got cancer. And at 53, I had recovered. I started training again. And I started to compete a lot in grappling. And since I turned 53, I've had over 250 grappling matches. But the idea is, it's one of those things where I've never really thought to myself, no matter how good a guy is, like even now, in other words, I took a match in June against a guy he's in his 20s. He's currently fighting in the UFC. And it's kind of funny because, like, I took it last minute, and somebody goes, "What the hell is wrong with you?" And I said, "What the fuck's going to happen? If I lose, I lose. Who cares?" The fact I'm just happy the fact I can do it.
absolutely.
And I
Now,
always, you always think in the back of your mind, as a fighter, no matter how ugly it gets, you can still pull a trick out of your ass and win.
absolutely. Now, I've seen online that you won some titles. Can you tell us about those?
Yeah, I've won a slew of stuff. Like in Burmese boxing, I was a world title holder in three different weight classes. I won a stadium championship in Thailand. Like I fought all over the world. And in grappling, I've won multiple the IBJJF national titles, IBJJF Masters Worlds, SJJIF Worlds. I think I've won 9 of those.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just one of these guys.
Um,
I love to compete.
oh yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. And I was just seeing online. Oh, you're also a vegan.
Yeah, I'm actually a lifelong vegan. My grandfather was a vegan. He was also an acupuncturist, and since he was the one that raised me, I grew up vegan. But it's not one of those things you hear. You talk to a lot of vegans, and they're trying to tell you that, like, I do it for respect of nature, for this, for that, for the other thing. No, I just feel better this way. The few times I tried to
Yeah.
eat meat products, they didn't sit well with me. Plus, between you and I don't like rich, creamy foods. Like, I think I was the only kid in the world who didn't like ice cream. who didn't
Wow.
love candy. Like, to me, my idea of a pig out is dried apricots and pineapple.
Oh, there you go. Now, also seen online and where you opened up the Asylum Fight Team. I
Right.
think that was in Las Vegas.
Right. No, what actually happened is I originally started teaching about 30 years ago. And the name of the school was Advanced Fighting Systems, and my
Yeah.
fight team was the Asylum Fight Team. And it kind of grew from there. And then I ended up moving to Vegas. And for a long time in Vegas, I was teaching for free. It's one of those things. I run a finance business, so the money coming in from martial arts to me is like meaningless. Like I usually donate my purses to St. Jude's, because it's kind of like, the dollars you make in mixed martial arts, it's not a great business model. So I prefer to keep it simple and teach because I love to. So the idea is I was teaching for free in Vegas, so I opened up the Asylum Fight Team out there, and then I opened up when I moved to Lexington again. I ended up opening something here because the closest school was an hour and a half away.
Oh, all right. Um, when you was doing the kickboxing and the MMA,
I didn't hear you.
well, the question is, when you was doing the kickboxing and the MMA, did you ever think about going to like doing like the pro stuff like the UFC?
Well, actually, I fought in mixed martial arts. I fought in pro shows at the time that were competing with the UFC, but this was before the UFC became a big thing. Yeah, I was fighting
Yeah.
back in the days when there were no gloves, no rounds, and it was my last fight was in the '90s.
Wow. Um.
So it's been a long time. The sport has changed and
Oh
evolved
yeah.
so much in that time period. Back when I did it, it was more the style versus style stuff.
Now, if you could pee in, well, the next question would be: if you could fight anybody today, who would it be?
Do we have any 90-pound women to choose from? Okay, because man, I'm telling you, these guys are just too young and fast
Yeah.
nowadays. Like, how do I phrase it? I'm a retired old guy. I don't think of like, I don't look at the UFC and think to myself, man, I'd like to fight him. It's one of those things that, like, for the sake of argument, the only thing I actually think of is like grappling.
Yeah.
Like, like, like I consider Gordon Ryan the greatest grappler in the world. And somebody else asked me, would I take a match with Gordon Ryan? And my exact answer was, hell yeah. Okay. And my second response was, we're going to find out how fast Gordon Ryan can kick my ass. But we're going to find out. Okay. So the idea is, it's kind of like, grappling is different than striking, because, grappling, you tap out, you don't get the hell beat out of you. Like, I still, like, when I was in Vegas, I'd sparred with a lot of guys that fought in the UFC, and like sparring is different than fighting. I would never make it through a fight camp at my age. My body would be too beat up. I'd start to fall apart.
Wow. Um, do you think and that your career could have went longer if your neck?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. This is a weird thing, because I used to really, when I was younger, resent having broken my neck. I felt it stole a good chunk of my prime. But what I've come to realize with the CTE, if I hadn't hurt my neck, first of all, I'd be a drooling fool. Second of all, I don't think I'd be able to eat. I'd still be grappling. My body would be too busted up.
Yeah.
So in a way, it
Oh,
might have
sorry.
worked in my favor.
Yeah. Now, I'm with you. Being in kickboxing and especially the martial arts stuff. Um, it's like your body kind of banged up from it all, or is it, or do you still train,
Oh, I
or
still I still train every night.
oh, there you go, yeah,
Yeah, I still train, and I just, between you and I just got back to training last week. I had surgery on my neck 3 weeks ago. I had a tumor removed, and before that, I had a tumor that was putting pressure on my carotid artery, so I couldn't train, and I was going nuts because without training, Like, that's my outlet for coping with stress. So it's kind of like, work, life, everything started to like really run me over. And it's like, as soon as I start training, I'm a happy camper again. So I started training again last week, but it's one of those things that like, without the training, I would go crazy.
There you go. Now, this question right here, maybe you can answer it, more than probably go into more details. But why do you think people goes into? How do you think people do like the martial arts stuff?
Well, I have to separate martial arts from combat sports.
Yeah.
Okay, because you have a lot of martial arts where, let's say Tai Chi, which is basically moving meditation. Okay, and people go into that to feel healthy or feel better, whatever. That's a completely different ballpark. But combat sports, I always tell people there's three type of people that I notice become fighters for the sake of argument. One is a guy who's through and through, he's just a fighter. Okay, in other words, he finds it, he falls in love with it because he actually doesn't mind, actually kind of likes getting punched in the face. Then you have the athlete who chooses to do mixed martial arts. I think George St. Pierre was a great example of that because I never really considered him a fighter personality. He was more an athlete who chose the sport of mixed martial arts and martial arts in general. And then you have the third type, which kind of a lot of people are this way. They go in it to prove something. Like, you don't know how many people will come by a school and tell me, they'll call me up on the phone, they'll tell me how tough they are. Then they'll tell me they want to fight in the UFC and they think they could be a great fighter. They come by, and after 2 classes, you never see them again. Okay, because it's not that they wanted to be a fighter, they wanted the things they associated with being a fighter, like the clout, the respect. For them it's more image, and I've noticed that more nowadays. And I'm not just talking age groups, I'm talking about like even older people now have become way more style over substance. It's more important to put on your Facebook. Like, we had kids that would come by Vegas. They take one class, they take a picture with me, take a picture next to the cage, and then you'd see them post on Facebook that they're a professional fighter. They had one class, never came back. Okay, so it's kind of like, for some people, it seems that image is everything. Okay, I can't wrap my head around that, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time worrying about it. But the other two types are the types you focus on. In other words, a guy who he's just a fighter through and through. Like, I've had guys that you punch them in the face, they get a big smile. Okay, then there's the guy who's an athlete who actually likes the sport, but I wouldn't call them a fighter because, like, if you step to them in the street, they would diffuse the situation.
Yeah. Now, when you go into a fight, and how do you get prepared, or how did you? So how do you get focused for it?
Well, now I joke around with grappling. Like, I call myself a shits and giggles grappler. I keep myself in normal shape, and whenever I feel like doing something, I sign up for it and go do it. Or somebody make me an offer and I'll take it at whatever my walking around shape is. Because for me now, I'm no longer as interested in the result as the experience. And I've learned to understand my body. I can't beat my body down like I used to. When I was planning on fighting, I would go into a fight camp. Okay. And I'd spend if I was already coming out of a recent fight camp, about 6 weeks. Okay. Otherwise, it'd be about 12. And basically, I do a lot of sparring. I'd get in the best shape I could be. In other words, I'd go friggin' nuts. I'd be training 3 and 4 times a day, absolutely psycho about it. Okay. It would become an all encompassing thing. Okay. Because I always tell people the only thing I can control is how prepared I am. That's it. Anything else, like, I can only control my conditioning and how ready I am. Everything that happens in that fight, the minute we get in there, is now out of my control. I'm going to try to implement my game. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, I've got to adapt.
There you go. Now, and have you ever broken someone's jaw?
Yeah, and I've had my own broken.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Can you tell us what it felt like?
I got cracked with a really good punch. My jaw was out of alignment, and I had it pop back in.
Now, there you go. Now, of course, with the MMA and all of that, there's a lot of blood involved. And have you ever been in a bloodbath fight?
Oh yeah. In fact, my first fight back after the broken neck, I fought a guy and I got stopped at around a 10-minute mark on cuts. I ate 2 elbows during the fight that opened up 2 big cuts on my forehead, right over my eyes. And it was kind of funny because the ref stops the fight and I'm upset. I can keep going. I can keep going. Then I look over at my opponent. Now, this was an MMA fight in a boxing ring. I look at my opponent, and he was a black guy who was wearing a pair of white shorts. His shorts were pink. Okay, then I looked at the ring, and the floor of the ring was a white canvas, and there was red all over it. Then I rubbed my hand down my chest, and my hand was covered with blood. And I'm like thinking to myself, okay, maybe he was right. So I look at him and I go, good call. I don't think I had a pint of blood left. It's kind of like sometimes you get upset with the call and then you realize, it was a good call. It's kind of like how much are they going to let you bleed out?
And what do you have to say to these people that want to do basically what you do, and then they probably don't have no experience and but want to go into ways
First off,
and yeah, go ahead.
okay, first off, somebody that's thinking, oh, I'd really like to do the sport. Find a gym. And I can't stress this enough. This is not a sport where you just decide, oh, I'm going to watch a couple videotapes and go fight. Yeah, you can, okay, but quite truthfully, you're handicapping yourself. Find a good school. Find a coach. Check out several places. Find a guy that you jibe with their attitude about things. You jibe with their view on the sport. Okay, because I'm a big one, not just in sports, but in life in general. It's called precision modeling. Find somebody who's been successful. Okay, get in touch with them. See if they'll mentor you. Okay, you'll save all the trial and error they went through. And my job as a coach, number one, is like I joke around. Guy comes into the school. I want to fight. My first, why? Most intelligent people want to make livings not getting punched in their head. Okay. Most people spend their whole life avoiding fights, and you want to schedule something at 8 o'clock on Saturday night to climb into a cage with a man who wants to stomp a mud hole in your head. It doesn't make sense. Okay, so if I can't talk you out of it, then we're going to train you. And when you're starting to think about fighting, we're going to beat the fuck out of you. Okay, we're going to try to convince you this is stupid. And if we can't convince you it was stupid, you're going to be ready. That's actually, I'm joking in a way, but think to yourself, you're getting into a serious business. It's the hurt business. Surround yourself with people that know the business. I see so many guys end their careers before they even start because they don't hook up with good people. My greatest advice I could give any young and up and comer, even if you live in Podunk, Iowa, and it's not a school within a couple hours, find somebody on the internet, reach out to him, talk to him, get his advice. And remember, people that are successful at something are successful for a reason, okay? Because they overcame all the hurdles in their way. They'll help you overcome hurdles. And the other thing they'll do is they'll help you skip some of the hurdles that stuck them up for a while. Like, how long do you spend before you find out that most matchmakers and promoters, when they're talking to you, they're lying? Okay, they need to make a fight. They have fighters like, if I get a call from somebody in Iowa and he wants to bring one of my guys out to Iowa, I know he's bringing my guy out because he thinks my guy's going to lose because he's got a local boy that's selling a lot of tickets that he wants to get over. Okay, so it's kind of like, you do your research, do things in a smart, intelligent fashion, come up with a game plan, follow the plan, If the plan's not working, look back at the plan and look at yourself. Do I just not have it? Okay, because I'm one of those people as a coach. I can be an asshole at times. Like I say all the time, my job, your mommy's job, is to make you feel good about yourself. Yes, you're great looking. I have no idea why the girls aren't interested in you. Oh, you're intelligent. Okay, I have no idea why you failed out of remedial reading. Okay, your mommy's there to make you feel good. If your striking sucks, your coach is going to tell you your striking sucks and you need to hear it. Okay, because you should not be getting in a cage before your coach thinks you're ready. It's one of those things that this is not a do-it-yourself sport. And one of the things that really bothers me is I see so many kids trying to do it themselves, and it breaks my heart because they finish themselves before they even get started.
Wow.
Sorry about the rant.
Oh, it's all right. It's all right. Well, speaking of training, how long does it take for you to train these guys uh, to realize that they're ready to step into the cage?
Highly individual. I've had guys get in the cage as a pro fighter after 7 or 8 months. I've had guys that need 2 years before they're ready for an amateur fight. A lot of it is, and it's kind of like I'm one of these guys. Technique's very important. It's the most important thing. Okay, but some people are like sponges, they pick things up fast. Some people are physical specimens. They're just so strong, so fast that it covers a multitude of sins. Okay, so a lot of it is based on the individual. You've got to look at the individual, how they're progressing, how they deal with adversity. And there's another thing. Some guys are just gamers. I've seen guys that practice lousy but fight great, and other guys that are gym killers that can never bring it to the ring.
Wow.
There's a lot of stress involved in fighting. It's actually artificial because basically you're making an appointment 8 weeks out. Now, all your focus is on that day 8 weeks from now. Okay. Along with that, you're probably cutting weight to make a certain weight limit. You weigh in the night before. So you're dehydrated, you're drained. You pig out that night to try to put weight back on. Then you have problem. Most guys have problems sleeping the night before because tomorrow they got to get in the cage. Then you have to show up around 4 o'clock and sit around all day. There's a medical, there's rules meetings. So you're sitting around all day waiting to take that walk. Some guys, by the time they get to the cage, they're finished. Like, it's kind of like, you ever see the movie The Green Mile?
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody likened it, and I think they're right, to that walk to the death chamber. For some guys, it's fucking like that.
Can you tell us about I think it's BJJ?
Yeah, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a form of Jiu-Jitsu. Long story short, a guy named Maeda was a judo guy in Japan, and they were doing a tour of the United States. And Teddy Roosevelt was a big wrestling and judo fan. And Maeda was with an older judo guy, and Maeda's job was to take on all challengers. And the older judo guy kind of acted as a diplomat. Well, they got invited to the White House. Maeda got food poisoning before going, so he couldn't go. A wrestler challenged judo, and the old man was forced to take the challenge and lost. And in Maeda's mind, he lost face. He never went back to Japan, emigrated to Brazil, stayed in Brazil, and basically fought all comers in Brazil, and then started to teach people in Brazil, judo, and then it became Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And there's a lot of controversy over the history of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but basically it's a modified form of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a modified form of Japanese Judo that focuses more on the ground than stand-up.
Oh wow, yeah. Now for people that's listening, and for people that's listening, and where can they find you on social media?
Okay, my website is lexingtonbjj.com. And social media, it's Phil Dunlap, my name. And if you're looking for me, most of my social media platforms have me being me in a picture of Chael Sonnen interviewing me as my profile pic, so you'll know it's me.
Well, there you go. All right. Well, Phil, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. I think we had a good time. I think we covered some things.
I had a great time. I always you got me on the one topic. I love sharing. I love sharing the martial arts with people because number one, I really feel it can change lives. Okay, and not just in other words in making people stronger, tougher, more confident, but the lessons you learn in training. That it takes hard work, it takes discipline. If you start to apply them to the rest of your life, you'll have the foundation for success.
All right, yeah, for sure. All right. Once again, thank you, Phil, for coming on to talk about your career in the MMA and kickboxing, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on. And listen, have a great day, everyone.
All right. That wraps it up for this episode of Conversations with Jacob. Tune in next week because it's more interviews coming. So until then, be safe, God bless, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode.